in my final moments, in my last time in this chamber, Mr. Speaker, I want to share my thoughts with my fellow parliamentarians. Over a century ago, as war raged in Europe, Prime Minister Borden said this about a Canada coming together to meet the challenges of its age. Quote, "In the awful conditions which confront the world today, why should the political future of any individual or the political fortunes of any party stand for one moment across the path of a great national purpose?" Mr. Speaker, war is again touching Europe, and democracy is being strained in many parts of the world. With this in mind, all of us in this chamber must ask ourselves, what is our great national purpose at this critical moment in history? There will be an important counteroffensive from Ukraine in the war this spring, and Canadian soldiers have helped train our friends in the Ukrainian army. But just last week, we learned that Canadian soldiers in Latvia were forced to buy their own helmets. This news came mere weeks after learning that the Prime Minister had told other world leaders that Canada had no intention of paying its fair share in NATO. The country that in Borden's time secured victory at Vimy Ridge now has its soldiers buying its own kit. The country that helped draft the NATO Charter now is saying it's not willing to pay and support it. This chamber should always ensure that the men and women have the equipment they need to do the job we ask them to do, and that our country never wavers from its commitment to peace, security, and living up to our word. That should be our national purpose, Mr. Speaker. There are Indigenous youth in Canada who voted for the first time for people here in this chamber. Yet some of these Canadians have never been able to drink the water in their community. It's our job to ensure that every child has access to clean drinking water and a fair chance to succeed in life. That should be part of our national purpose. It takes a decade to get a pipeline built to Tidewater in this country, 2 decades to get a mine into operation. Canada has been slowing down at a time the world is asking us to speed up. Getting Canadian resources to global markets for both our economy and our environment should be our shared national purpose, Mr. Speaker. There are many challenges facing Canada at this time, but there are also incredible opportunities waiting to be seized. But that is not happening today. Instead of leading, instead of debating our national purpose in this chamber, too many of us are often chasing algorithms down a sinkhole of diversion and division. We are becoming elected officials who judge our self-worth by how many likes we get on social media, but now not how many lives we change in the real world. Performance politics is fueling polarization. Virtue signaling is replacing discussion. And far too often, Mr. Speaker, we're just using this chamber to generate clips, not to start national debates. Social media did not build this great country, but it is starting to tear its democracy down. If we're not careful, there will soon be a generation of young voters who have never even heard a point of view different from their own. I fear the ignorance of the views of others will slowly transform into a dislike of others. And we can see that starting to happen, Mr. Speaker. Canada is a frontier country. We were built on the strength of the fur trade, a country where going hunting with your grandfather or an elder is as quintessentially Canadian as the backyard hockey rink. But today, hunters are often demonized as a threat to society by politicians who know that this is not true. Whole rural swaths of our country are being held up as the problem only to secure a few political points in the suburbs. Mr. Speaker, we are a country that sent our citizens far from our shores several times to fight for liberty alongside other countries in multilateral efforts. Canadian diplomats, including a future Prime Minister, helped draft the agreements built on that sacrifice to give us decades of peace and security. NATO, the United Nations, the Commonwealth. But today, too often, we're allowing conspiracy theories about the UN or the World Economic Forum go unchallenged, or we attribute sinister motives to these organizations or people in a way that is simply not true or not fair. And if we do this more, we're allowing others to define the debate for us. We risk allowing others to set the course for this country because too many members on all sides of this chamber, from time to time, I've been guilty of it myself, Mr. Speaker, we're becoming followers of our followers when we should be leaders. One member from the other side of the House told me, Mr. Speaker, that they no longer speak to their brother because of the divisive nature of the vaccine debates in the last election. Canadian families are in some cases finding it difficult to talk to each other about important issues. If we ever want to change this and begin to have respectful and serious discussions again, Mr. Speaker, that change needs to start right here in Canada's House of Commons. Why should the political future of any single member of this chamber or the electoral success of any one party stand in the way of our unity, of the prosperity we want to give to our children? Preserving these things and rising to meet the unique challenges facing Canada and the world today needs to be our national purpose. As members of Parliament, we must always put the country first. We must lead and not just follow. We must strive to inspire and be careful not to incite. And we must debate with insightful reason, not just tweet out of frustration. Because if we don't, Mr. Speaker, decades in the future, Canadians will point to this Parliament as the time when our national decline began. But colleagues, I don't think that will happen. I'm an optimist, and I hope you all reflect on some of these things over the summer, because I believe that Canada's best days are actually ahead of us, Mr. Speaker. I believe in this great country and its people. And friends, I believe in each of you. It's been an honor to serve with you. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.
And that is former Conservative leader Erin O'Toole giving his farewell speech in the House of Commons after 11 years in federal politics. Erin O'Toole was defeated in the 2021 election. Mr. O'Toole saying that instead of debating our national purpose, too many are chasing algorithms down a path of division, that social media is starting to tear Canada's democracy down. But at the end there, he said, I am an optimist. I do believe that Canada's best days are ahead.